Welcome to the Leadership and Love podcast. We will cover leadership, mindset, personal development, and sales and marketing. You will experience thought-provoking conversations with both nationally and internationally recognized leaders. Our goal is to inspire you and deliver actionable items that you can implement that are going to help you accelerate your growth. Get ready to discover the magic and the power when you lead with love. Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Leadership and Love. Today, I'm truly humbled and excited for a dear friend of mine, a mentor, and a coach that has been in my life for quite a while now. Mr. Mike Jones. Mike Jones is the owner and CEO of Discover Leadership, and we're going to talk a little bit about that and what his company does in a little bit. But I'd like to give you a little bit of a background on where he came from, and then I'll turn it over to you, Mike, to fill in the blanks and the spaces. But at one point, I met Mike at an event, and I kind of rolled my eyes at him, and he said, he knew what crossed my mind, and I thought, at the time I was younger than I am today, obviously, and I was a little cocky and thought, well, yeah, what's this guy going to teach me? Well, I was in for a rude awakening because he's taught me just a wealth of information around leadership and a bunch of other things. But what I want you to know, at one point he was a helicopter pilot for the police department in Texas, and he's morphed and left that, and he had a career before that as well. So he's done a number of things in his life, but then he came to this thing called Discover Leadership through his own personal growth and personal journey, and he's really sharing it with the world. And trust me when I tell you, this is a man who changes lives. This is also a man who lives with one of the highest level of integrity that I've ever known, and I mean that sincerely. He says when he's on your team, he means it. There's times I've called Mike and said, hey, Mike, I need help. And he takes the call, or he'll call back as soon as possible, and he gives me wisdom, advice, and counsel on how to guide myself through whatever challenge I'm in the middle of. So, Mike, thanks for being here, and please fill in any of the blanks that I might have left out.
No, Louie, thank you for having me, man. I feel honored to be a part of the Gifted Leadership and on this incredible podcast that you've launched, and being able to be a part of the genesis of this is really important to me, and I feel honored for the opportunity. So thank you.
You're quite welcome. One of the first things I want to talk to you about, Mike, that I think I've never seen anybody do a better job of this than you. How would you suggest to our listeners that they deliver a message? You deliver hard messages. Now, I want to be clear with the audience. I'm not talking about mean messages or cruel or heartless. I'm talking about you deliver hard messages with tact and love. And you tell people, one of your sayings, and I'm going to cover a bunch of your stuff today that I learned from you. But one of the things you say is, the sweetest fruit is out on the skinny branches. But one of the things that you help people understand is personal responsibility. And when I brought you into my company for some leadership training, one of the first things we talked about was core values, and that's where you went. So can you please explain to the audience how, when you're delivering a hard message, how do you deliver it in such a way that it lands and people aren't offended?
Yeah, well, Louis, the first thing that we all have to truly just embrace is the fact that this is not a dress rehearsal. As far as we know it, this life that we have right now is the only one that we're going to get. So I like to tell people we don't have enough life left to be beating around the bush or blowing smoke up people's behinds, playing politics, or behaving a certain way because somebody's got paper on the wall from the university. I mean, the truth is the only thing that's going to get us to a better place. Now, I know I grew up in church down south down here, and in church they taught us that the truth will set you free. But what I've learned in my practice over these 33 years that I've been doing this, Louis, as it relates to the things that we have learned, the things that we have been taught, and the things that we have experienced in our life, those things that have allowed us to create the self-image of ourselves that we have, the messages that other people have given us that have created these identities that we have. to remain in that truth is what I like to refer to as imprisonment, because that imprisons you. So absence of that truth, if you grew up and somebody told you that you were worthless, or that you would never amount to something, or that you can't do something, that truth imprisons you. So absence of that truth is freedom, because the truth is, when you come through one of our programs, we are not going to be looking back at what happened. We're taking a rear view mirror down. We're talking about what's available to you right now in the context of this conversation, which means everything is available to you. There is abundance in this universe, there is not scarcity. So, whatever you want, if you have the courage to step inside of it, it's available to you. And when you meet people like Louie Sharp, or you get a chance to come through Discover Leadership Training, and you have those types of people in your life, they are going to absolutely require you to step up to another level in order to be a part of that community. Absolutely get to the best version of yourself that's available. So for me, Lloyd, I learned a long time ago that the straightest path to something is straight to it, not going around it. So when I am communicating with people, I like to go right to the point. I don't care what your title is, how much paper you got on the wall from the university. Every last one of us occupies the largest room in the house, which is a room for improvement. So if you are open to some new possibilities of somebody talking to you about things that are in your blind spot that you may not even be able to see, then Mike Jones is your guy, because I don't have a problem going there with you. So.
So for those of you listening, or who you could be watching as well. So Mike, and I trust me, you want to earmark this bad boy, copy and paste it, but you're going to listen to this thing over and over, because Mike's going to drop golden nuggets through our whole conversation. And Mike and I could talk about this for days. But a couple of things he just said, I want you to understand that everything that we've been told is a belief. And a belief is only a thought that you think over and over and over. And so I want you to grab what Mike said here, and I want you to challenge every thought that you think about yourself, because none of it's the truth. You get to pick what your truth is. Mike, you also touched on something, and I'd like you to go back for a minute, if you would, and talk about personal responsibility, because that's really the core of where you start your programs and your training to help people start to move the needle.
Louis, I have 4 biological sons, and everything that I have ever done through my leadership training was absolutely tested on them. So they were my lab rats. So as a kid growing up, I lived under, like most kids do, a command and control environment where mom was, she was a single parent, and she was the shit. She was the boss. And if you question why she was asking you to do something, the only response that quite often you was going to get is because I said so. And what I learned through that process when I had children of my own was that I wanted to really put them on a journey to go from dependent to independent. And I knew that the one thing that they owned in this universe that, nobody could ever take away from them was their word. So what I started doing with them is I started getting them to make commitments to very specific things, like cleaning a room or taking out the garbage or washing the dishes. We made commitments to things, and what I taught them through that process was that your word is the only thing that you own. So when you accept personal responsibility to own it, it absolutely is going to develop you into an individual who people can count on. There's a whole lot of assumptive trust in the world, Louis. People tell us that we should trust people indiscriminately until they give us a reason not to. If anybody's listening to that and you living your life by that, I'm gonna tell you, bro, the one thing that you can depend on is that there's going to be some disappointment in your future if you keep managing your relationships like that. The most authentic trust in the universe is when I tell Louie Sharp that I'm going to do something and I am personally responsible for my word, and I do it. The more and more I build that kind of a relationship, whether we're talking about in my business or in my home, then there is going to be trust in that relationship. And when people have that kind of trust in their relationship, Louis, you will play this game differently when you know who has your back. So we go into businesses all the time, Louis, and they want to talk about core values. In fact, most of them have had individuals that have come in, consultants that have come in, and they've gone through this process of writing a mission, vision statement, coming up with core values. I mean, they have it printed on the walls. They got it on little placards in the elevator. They've printed it on business cards and they've given it to people. I challenge you right now, if you're listening to this, if y'all have core values, I challenge you to look on that card or on that wall and tell me if personal responsibility is one of the things that is there. Because quite often it's not, Louis. And that's why we have all of these different measures of levels of management, is because people have to be managed to the outcome. They are not committed to it because they're not accepting personal responsibility. The one thing I challenge you to do, Louis, you look at the things that are on that core value list, like integrity, accountability. Let's definitely go there. Whatever those things are, what I want you to observe is that unless personal responsibility shows up, none of those things are going to show up. And I put accountability in there, Louis, because a lot of people think that accountability and personal responsibility are the same. I am absolutely here to tell you today that they are not the same. If I am holding you accountable, however, I am not accepting personal responsibility, let's call that blame. If I'm holding you accountable, but I'm not accepting personal responsibility, there's no personal responsibility in this relationship, that's called blame. So unless personal responsibility shows up, you are not going to get people to extreme ownership of their position, their roles, and their responsibility. When personal responsibility shows up, you will absolutely get them to ownership and extreme ownership where you can take your hands off of it, give them the resources and the authority to do their job, and they will do their job. They will not need to be managed because they will be self-managed.
Boy, I can tell you, Mike, if people just got what you just said, this whole thing is going to be worthwhile. And so, again, for those of you listening or watching, I want you to understand that what Mike just said, it's the foundation of what makes everything work. It starts with you. You can't, and I love that you're blaming, Mike. You know, if you're holding somebody accountable, you're really blaming them because you're not holding up your end of it. And I want to repeat something I said about Mike earlier. I can tell you that he walks the walk. When I call him or I need something and he said, I'm on your team, he's never, ever, never, ever. And here's what I want to talk about the emotional bank account a little bit, but he's always been there. And so he's living what he's talking about because it's that critical. And I want you to understand that he's talking about a word called freedom. We all want freedom, but we don't want to do the work to pay for that freedom and personal responsibility. And this is what I'm talking about, Mike. Nobody does this better than you. You deliver this message with such passion and enthusiasm, but also with love in your heart. And that's why it lands and you have such a big effect in people's lives. I'd like you to talk now, like it kind of transition into that. I know you've done a bunch of research, you study, and for those of you I didn't mention at the beginning of the program, Mike's a nationally renowned speaker. He goes into large and small companies and organizations literally across the country, as well as having his own programs. So Mike, I'd like you to talk about how to take that personal responsibility and those core values because they are critical, but you're absolutely right. The core values don't hold up without that foundation of personal responsibility. What do you share with organizations, teams about how to shift or move their culture?
Yeah, and you know, Lloyd, we as human beings are on this well-worn path where we've been taught what we should do and what we shouldn't do, and we go through our entire lives shooting all over ourselves. I mean, focused on doing things the way that we've been taught to do them, and they seem like they that they're the right things to do. The only way for us to identify what's right for me or what's right for Louis is we have to know what our specific outcome is. So if my outcome is to create a better version of myself, then this is an inside job that only I can do. It's an inside job that only I can make a commitment to and be personally be responsible to taking some small steps and getting small wins. So, and where I want to go with that just for a second, Louis, if I can, is that when we're on this well-worn path of doing things the way that we've been taught, a part of this human universal paradigm, where we're following some traditions. I know I'm gonna get myself in trouble with that one, but I'm gonna go there anyway. I'm gonna go there anyway. Following specific traditions, and traditions for me, Louis, are the beliefs of the dead. They are truly the beliefs of the dead. And traditionalisms are the dead beliefs of the living. So we have taken on these beliefs and we've not challenged them to the extent that we can do something even better than what somebody else has done. I know I'm gonna get myself in trouble, so let me just go and say it. When we are living according to the human universal paradigm, we are on this well-worn path where we're doing things only the way that we've been taught. What we have done is we have allowed ourselves to get into a fixed mindset where we believe that these things are the way that they are, and this is the only way it's going to be. This is who I am, and this is the only way I'm going to be. And I would call BS on that in a heartbeat, Louis. This is not who you are. It is who you have chosen to be again and again and again. And as a result of that, you have created this well-worn path that you follow, and you are a very predictable individual. We can predict from a human behavior standpoint how you're going to react to things, how you're going to show up, what your mindset is when something challenges you. It's going to be predictable because you're on this well-worn path and you've already played your cards. We already know who's going to show up. So what I would encourage people to do is understand that there are so many new possibilities for you in the universe if you just, first of all, understand that there are over 8 billion people on the planet. They all know something that you don't, which means that there is an opportunity for you to learn and for you to grow every day. For you to get up and be doing things the same old way every day, following the same pattern, I mean, is nothing more than underliving your potential, underliving the opportunity that God has given you to be a greater version of yourself than exists today. That can happen every day, Louis, if I'm truly moving into a growth mindset where I know that the best version of me yesterday can be improved upon today if I am willing to understand that I don't know what I don't know. And there's always an opportunity for me to learn something from Louis, from the barista at the Starbucks. I mean, if I'm open to learning and growing, and I listen with the intent to be influenced, if I'm reading these books with the intent to be influenced, I'm going to learn something from somebody else every day of my life.
He's dropping golden nuggets, and I want to capture a couple of those before we move on. One, learning. I'm a huge advocate. Mike and I share books and ideas all the time. And so, because we're both learners, we're both curious, you should never ever stop learning, because he's absolutely right. He said something else too. You have the choice. You're choosing to either stay the same or get out of that comfort zone. Another thing he touched on, Mike has, and I've learned a bunch of his acronyms from him over the years, but one of his acronyms is IFO. I focus on the outcome. And he created that himself, but I want you to understand he's talking about what's the outcome. That's the same as a goal. Where are you headed? Right? Where are you going in your life? And then if you know that, if you get clear on where you want to go, then the rest of it starts to line up, right, Mike? What you want to learn, and most importantly, what I'm passionate about. And you light my heart up, brother. This is just so, it's like recharging me. But have a conversation with you. When you know where you're going, what books to read becomes really easy, right? People ask me, what book should I read? I don't know. What are you focused on, right? Where are you headed? Well, who do you want to be? Who do you want to be? Because we get to be whoever we want to be. And that's the magic in that. So can you again, I'd like to, I don't want to let go of this culture thing, because you're such a great, when you came into my company, it changed the game. And the mind shift. So I'd like you to talk some more about culture and so now that you've got a leader who's focused on learning and improving every day who they're going to, and you said something, he said something else, everybody grab this. He said it could be little steps. It doesn't matter. It doesn't need to be quantum leaps. It could
Yeah.
be a little step, but every day a little step, a little step, a little step over time really starts to add up. So, Mike, how do people transform that into the culture and shift it into the team? I'm passionate about this too, brother, because I want this to go out for families as much as organizations and teams and corporations, because you can't do it in one place and not do it someplace else.
Absolutely. That's absolutely true. So, Louis, I got to say this because I mean, you teed this up really nicely. Unless I have an outcome, I don't know where I'm going. If I don't have my own North Star, then I'm playing based upon what's in the rearview mirror, what I've been taught. So let me just give you an example of that real quickly. If I don't have an outcome, any road will get me to where I'm going. I don't know where I don't have a specific destination. So when I have a outcome, I have a very specific role that's going to get me there. I'm going to know the appropriateness of my choices if I have an outcome. I don't even know what's positive and what's negative if I don't have an outcome. I'm only playing by historical data because everything in this universe, Louis, and I really want your listeners to get this, has a positive and a negative context. Everything in the universe has a positive and a negative context. However you have learned it and however you've experienced it, that's the way it's stored in your subconscious with a positive or negative frame around it. However, everything in this universe has a positive and a negative. So I don't even know the appropriateness of my choices. I don't know positive and negative unless I have a very specific outcome. So now that I know where I'm going, I know what choices are going to get me there. I know what books I can read that's going to help me get there. I know what people I want in my community to surround myself with. I mean, it allows me to be able to be very definitive about who I am, what I'm about, and what you can expect from me in the context of my outcome. So now let's get back to the small steps real quick. Through the process of neuroplasticity, in order for us to really create sustainable change, we've got to understand the importance of the power of repetition. So if I'm taking small steps to a specific outcome and getting small wins every day, then through that process of small steps, small wins, the power of repetition, then I am going to create new behaviors. So I would challenge everybody listening to this to challenge everything that you've been taught. So I just want to throw this log on the fire real quick, Louis. So if I walk into my business or I walk into my home where my boys are concerned or my wife Susan, and I walk up to one of them, Louis, and I say to you, I want to give you some feedback. What they now have is a negative frame around a word that says, you're going to criticize me. So through the fight or flight mechanism, they're automatically going to be defensive and absolutely standoffish because of that one word. So let me throw another big log on the fire before I go where I'm going to go. Words create pictures, and those pictures create emotions, and then our energy and our action follow our thoughts. So if you look at the frame that is around the word feedback, it's a negative frame. It's going to create a negative picture, which now is going to put them in a negative space because their energy and their actions are going to follow their thought. Their thought is that's negative. Does that make sense so far, Louis?
Yes, sir. I'm tracking with you.
Okay, so now that we have an awareness around that one word that we could change from a negative context to a positive context, it's going to create a much different picture. It's going to create a much different outcome. It's going to create a much different energy between those two people. So I invented a word, and I've been using it a lot in the last 33 years, and I really wanted to catch on, Louis. I wanted to become a household word. I wanted to become a cultural foundation for people, and the word is feed forward. So when I'm now giving people feed forward, it changes everything. So the rearview mirror comes down. We're not going to talk about what went wrong or what I don't want from you. We're going to talk about what you need to do moving forward in order for you to be more successful. We're going to paint a picture of where I want you to go, not where you've been. People think, Louis, that if I tell you what you did wrong, then there's a good chance that you're not going to do that again. Well, if you tell me what I did wrong, boss, I still don't know what to do right.
I need to interrupt you real quick. I want everybody to catch that. What he just said. Boss, you didn't give me, and he's talking about pictures. The brain works in pictures. If I give you the word elephant, and thanks for letting me interrupt you, Mike, because this is flipping. This is the gold mine, brother. This is the vein, right? You're right there. You got hair on the back of my neck standing up, man. We got this thing going on. But our brain works in pictures, and so if you're giving somebody feedback, you're showing the picture of what was behind you. Mike's rear view mirror theory, tear that bad boy off and throw it away. But their picture that you're continuing to reinforce is the negative that happened behind them. You've got to show them the picture of what that outcome is. Where do you want them to go? Give them, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but go on. I
No,
couldn't let
that's
that one
beautiful,
go
bro.
by.
That's beautiful, man. And that's exactly what I'm just committed to do, man. I am focused and committed to changing the world, Louis. And it starts with you and me. I mean, I can just do it two people at a time. That's perfectly okay because every one of those individuals are going to touch somebody else. I want to focus on doing it two people at a time, you and me. So whoever's listening to this, they benefit from it. That's great. But right now, this is just about you and me. Right now, mano a mano, one on one. So now that I am communicating what I want them to do, what I want you to observe when you embrace this is that it's going to speed up the transaction. It's going to develop more receptivity in the relationship. They're going to be willing to take more risk. So they're going to be more innovative. They're going to be more resilient when we start managing people like this and managing ourselves like this as well, Louis. So rather than me focusing on what went wrong, if I now can get my mind to shift 180 degrees and focus on what's going right, first of all, I can celebrate that, and I should. But I'm for a high five, baby, and I should. And in addition to that, I am now going to be in a much different energy moving forward. That's going to be a positive energy than over here licking my wounds in a negative energy based upon the fact that I did something wrong and I got beat up for
Again, man, you're on fire, Mike. So again, listeners, there's a couple of things I want to make sure you catch this, what Mike's talking about. One is he's talked about choices. The other thing he said is every choice you make is going to either lead to a negative or a positive. And I love to tell people there's no fence straddling, right, Mike? You can't stand in the middle of the road thinking it's
it.
going to be okay because you're not doing anything,
No,
right? It's going to go one way or the other. But you're making these choices that are positive or negative. And I want to touch on something else that Mike just said that's really near and dear to my heart. We all have the power to change the world. We all do. And it's not some monumentous thing. It's every day with your interaction with people. And Mike, you hit that nail on the head. And I want to share with the audience, to this day, I still use Feed Forward. As a matter of fact, I sent out an email, Mike, and you're on that email that I sent out today, asking people to help me with the podcast and get it out. And I asked them for Feed Forward. And this is what I want all the listeners, I want you all to grasp this. I believe we're not supposed to know the full impact of our downstream. Mike, you've impacted literally tens of thousands of lives. And Mike said something that I think every leader needs to realize. If you only impact one person, you have no idea how many lives they touch. So you got to be the best you all the time with everybody because you don't know how far down it goes. And I believe God gave us that on purpose, right? If you knew how the impact you've had, Mike, you couldn't get your head out the door. Right.
right,
And that's why God keeps us separate from that. And I
right,
trust that whatever it is, it's going to be what it's supposed to be, right? That's that faith and belief in what we're doing
absolutely,
is
absolutely.
is positive. And so again, I want the listeners to catch the importance of your decisions headed to a specific outcome and then what those effects are having on other people. Mike, I'd like to talk about at this point, how do you tie culture to that vision of purpose in making a difference? One of the things I share with people, I really believe our business, whether you own a business or work in a business, that's our spiritual practice. I'd love to hear your thoughts on how you tie the culture and the purpose or the vision for the company or the organization or the family, right? A lot of families don't have a vision of who they want to be, how they want to be. So can you talk about that, please?
Yeah, and you know, Lou, when you talk about culture, we've had an opportunity to do some great work with some great organizations and great teams that really were on that well-worn path of doing things the way whatever best practices they have connected to. And the first thing I like to do when I walk in the door is tell them, Discover Leadership Training. We're not focused on best practices. We're focused on you creating the next practice. So when you create the next practice, it's because you set a specific outcome. You've taken the human beings that are in this building, this human dynamic, which does not exist anywhere else on the planet, and you are absolutely utilizing all of the potential of these people in the building to get to your specific outcome. So if I'm following somebody else's process, I may be underliving my potential, and my whole team may be underliving their potential. If we now create the outcome that we want, whether it seems lofty or not is not what's important. What's important over the course of time is how they play the game. So I am going to continually only address them when they are playing the game in the appropriate manner that's going to get us to our outcome. Those are the things that I'm going to address. So let me just throw this on there, Lloyd, because this is where you're going to think, oh, okay, I knew Mike Jones was crazy. I never told my boys that they were gifted, that they were talented, that they were somehow special, what, because all of those things will create a fixed mindset where an individual does not realize that they've got to work for what they want. What I taught my boys was to have a great work ethic. I only address them when they put in the effort. I only address the effort. The reason that you got that A on that test, bro, is because you studied your butt off for that. And so I'm now giving the dog a bone for what I want the dog to continue doing. Because if you give a dog a bone for shitting in the middle of the floor, Louis, he's going to keep shitting in the middle of the floor. Whatever you're rewarding is what the people are going to do. So if I'm in my business now and I know that we have set a specific outcome, like we have KPIs and we want to hit these numbers every month. I'm not going to judge them based upon whether or not we hit that KPI or not. I'm going to judge them on how they played the game, because there are going to be circumstances and stuff that's going to happen that none of us have any control over. The question is, how did we come together as a team in those moments that circumstances occurred that we didn't have any control over, and come together and synergistically deal with whatever it was? Not blaming, not advocating, but coming together and doing everything that we can as a team, as a unit that never says that's not my job. That never says that I got this much tenure, so I'm the brain of the business, or whatever. There's opportunity for everybody to learn and everybody to grow. And what I'm going to focus on is how they're playing the game. The things that I'm going to address is how they're playing the game. And that is the one thing that we control. That's the one thing that we can grow. I mean, every day and get better. And absolutely make sure that they get rewarded for the how they're playing the game and not for necessarily hitting outcomes.
So one of Mike's catchphrases is a game changer. He uses that in some of his trainings, and I can tell you that what he was just talking about is just that, right? That's how you change the game: is hold your focus on what they're doing right, not. And I love to tell people, managed by walking around, right? Go find people doing stuff right. Go find them playing the game the way you want them playing the game. Don't. There's a lot of leaders that'll wander around and they're nitpicking things or they're jumping down people's throats for what they're doing wrong or what. And again, that picture is completely different than where they want the outcome to go. You touched on something, Mike, that I don't want to gloss over, and I want you to help the audience understand. You said something very powerful about the team's potential. I'd like you to talk about how you, when you go into companies and even one-on-one like you've done with me and other people, what's your thoughts and advice on how do you get the potential out of your people, and what do you use to determine whether they should stay on the team or they need to go find another team? Because you said another thing that is a truly golden nugget. Every team is unique, right? There are no two teams alike. And again, Mike's telling you, here's another thing Mike's been saying. He's got a theme through this, everybody. One of the things he's saying is break out of the box. Whatever you thought is the paradigm that's the truth, tear it all down and start again, because your team is like no other team. And so your rules, your structure, all the things that you think should be might be completely different to get that maximum potential. But Mike, can you talk about how to get the most out of your people for their potential, and then also determine who should or shouldn't be on your team?
Oh yeah. Oh, Louis. I mean, what a beautiful topic too, man. The one thing that we teach when we're working with a team is we teach the leadership to start managing promises and not expectations. So when we're managing our expectations, that's all historical stuff. That's rear view mirror stuff. And when we now start managing, and you talk about, here we go, come back to personal responsibility. We start managing promises. We now have a much different culture, a much different game that we're playing, because now I've come to you, Louis. I've told you exactly what I need from you. I've absolutely made sure that you can deliver that. And if not, and then I'm going to teach you how to. I'm not just going to tell you. I'm going to tell you. I'm going to show you. Then I'm going to have you tell me, and then you show me. I'm going to make sure that you know exactly how to deliver that before I take my hands off of it. And I am going to gain an agreement from you. This is so important, Louis. I'm going to gain an agreement from you that we're going to deliver this at this level by this date. So, and once I have that commitment and that agreement, I can now manage that promise in game. That's got to be really important, Louis. I'm going to manage it in game and make sure that we are successful because I am on your team. I'm not going to just give you this and walk away and come back in 30 days at the end of the deadline to see if you've accomplished it or you have not. I am never going to take my hand off of it. People say that that's called micromanaging. I disagree completely. I am here to help manage this in game so I can give you atabars, kudos, high fives, pats on the back, whatever you need, a hug, whatever you need to keep doing that way. I'm going to keep encouraging you that you're doing the right thing, you're doing it the right way, or if you get off step a little bit, I'm going to help manage that in game. I'm not going to wait for you to fail and then jump all over you at the end. We're going to have a relationship that is a collaborative relationship, that's a two-way street that you can give and take with me along this journey as we build this culture together.
So everybody, I want you to again, he's not dropping little nuggets, he's dropping boulders of gold. So one of the things Mike just said is he's very clear and very specific on what that outcome is that he wants that perfect specific team member to have. And then before he holds them accountable, he's training them, teaching them, coaching them, mentoring them, all the things good leaders do to get them to. And then he said something very important. They tell him back how to do it and they show him. So he's got clear understanding. There's no breakdown in that communication. It's crystal clear what the outcome, the FOMO, right? What am I focusing on? And then he trains that to agreement, because once you have agreement, then you know that you can kind of take your hands off the wheel enough to audit or monitor them, because you don't, you're right, Mike, you don't walk away, you don't lead by dropping it on them and then walking away thinking it's just all going to be magic and it's all going to go down the way you want it to. I think that, and again, I want everybody to know Mike has modeled this in my relationship with him for I don't know how long we've known each other, Mike, maybe a decade at this point. But and I'm telling you, in 10 years, he has not failed. He has not failed to answer the phone or call me back and hold that up. And that's those promises he's talking about. And again, he keeps bringing back to personal responsibility. Mike, I'd like to go a little bit further. Can you talk about at some point, now that you've done this training, you've got somebody that you can hold accountable, but you're walking the path with them, right? I love that now that picture comes to my mind. You're walking the path with them. At what point? How do you coach and mentor leaders? At what point do you decide they need to move to another team? They don't. It is not a good fit for our team.
Right, and and I love the question. And I'm sorry I didn't address it a moment ago. But Louis, when you are managing individuals by promises and not by expectations, what ultimately happens is it speeds up the transaction for you to know if this is the right person on my team or not, because you're going to be able to definitively see that this person has integrity with themselves or they don't have integrity with themselves. So if I'm building a culture based on trust, and I know that if I'm managing my promise, at some point I'm going to be able to allow that person to be completely autonomous from me and not have to check on them at all, because we're going to have built a trusting relationship that we know that they're going to play full out every day, that they're going to deliver at a high level every day, and I no longer need to give attention or energy to that particular person. I can now go and do something else with that time that I got back, because I now know. I'm not assuming. I know that this person is the right person for my team based upon how they play the game. And I can easily determine who's not a good fit for that based on how they're playing the game. So they've made promises to me. They've been shown exactly how things need to be done at the level that they need to be done. However, they refuse to do things at that level, then they're definitely not going to be a good fit for my team.
I love that, and I've heard the analogy. I love your thoughts on it. As soon as it crosses your mind that they're not a good fit, you should let them go. Do you agree with that?
Absolutely. 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 I was just talking to a leader yesterday, Louis, that I said, I've been coaching you to cut ties with this person for about 6 months now. And soon as you do it, you're going to say, I wish I had done that sooner. And that's exactly what he said yesterday. I wish I had listened to you. I wish I had done that sooner. Now I got a bigger mess to clean up than I would have had 6 months ago. And I love what you said. As soon as it crosses your mind that this is not a good fit for my team, it's not a good fit for your team, and you need to do something about it.
One of the things, I was in an organization when I would go into networking chapters, and one of the things that blew me away, Mike, was, and I like you speak to this because I'm sure you've had much more experience than I have, but it was unbelievable to me how one bad apple, one person in a chapter of 15, 20, 30 winners they could suck that whole chapter down. Could you talk about that a little bit and why it's so important to get that apple out sooner than later?
Absolutely. So Louis, you right in my wheelhouse right now, because I know we all grew up playing sports and people taught us that there's no I in team. One of the things that we teach at Discover Leadership Training is that there is absolutely an I in team, because every person matters. Every person is going to affect this culture, this environment, this family, or whatever the case may be, either positively or negatively. There is absolutely no neutral in the context of this. So for me to have my team at work performing and producing the optimal outcome, then everybody's got to be on board and doing their job. It would only take one of them, Louis, to be that bad apple or not performing at that same high level for us to now have sum total, SUMTOTAL. So if we want optimal, everybody's got to be accepting personal responsibility to be the I in team, to deliver at the quality and at the speed and whatever that we have agreed upon. It would only take one of them in order to throw a wrench in that for us to end up with sum total and not optimal. Only one.
Yeah, I love that, Mike, and it's really powerful because I think people tolerate, especially in the market today. I don't understand why, but they tolerate things because they think, well, I can't replace this person. You can't afford not to replace that person, right? They could suck the rest of the team down faster than you can whistle Dixie, and then and like the leader you were just coaching, then you got a real mess on your hands because. And here's the thing that I'd like you to talk about this a little bit too, because and again, we could do this for hours, but I'd like you to talk about the what does it do to the team when you let that one bad apple stray off of our core values, off of personal responsibility? What happens?
Yeah. So one of the things that you're doing as a leader when you allow that, Louis, is you are damaging the trust as it relates to this team. You are also setting a precedence that it's okay to operate at this level and still have a job and still get paid. And that allowing that in the culture is going to bring the quality of the whole thing down because now you have now given other people permission to behave in the exact same way. You cannot confront them if you're not going to confront that. The more you confront that, what I have learned over time, Louis, it brings the level of trust up. It brings the level of receptivity and synergy up on the team because they now know that this is not going to be tolerated in this culture. We only are going to play based upon our promises. And when that culture is one that is being managed by promises and not expectations, you are absolutely going to see people behave way differently than they are normally in the traditional environment.
So this is really rich, Mike. So that leads me to another question. So I would love to hear your thoughts and advice to leaders on how do they have that hard conversation. A lot of people are afraid of confrontation, or to your point earlier, when you if you were to say something like, and you mentioned this before we started recording about constructive criticism, right? But how do you coach people on how to have those difficult conversations and confront the issue to stop that and not tolerate it right now?
Yeah. And Louis, when you are managing promises versus expectations, when you have a culture that is focused on giving people feed forward in game, there really are no tough conversations because you've now developed relationship that has trust in it that whatever conversation needs to happen is going to happen and is not going to be a whole lot of negativity involved in it, if any. But the one thing that what we really got to sell here, though, Louis, is that when I'm giving people feed forward consistently, they are now going to be seeking out my observation. They're going to be seeking out my commentary. They're going to be seeking out. They're not going to be running from it. They're not going to be hiding it. They see me show up because I'm a command and control leader. They put their heads down. They don't want to hear anything from me. But when I now am the leader, who's walking around here catching people doing things right rather than catching them doing things wrong, then they are going to be more receptive to everything that I have to say. And those tough conversations are no longer tough conversations. They are just normal conversations in the context of this.
So again, everybody, save this, replay it. He just another huge piece of wisdom, and he's talking about the communication, right? He's talking about that communication that's gone on the entire time with the team, with the family. So it's really clear where we're heading, how we're playing the game, who we're busy being, and how we're going to get to where we all mutually want to go. So at that point, it's really easy to have that conversation because it's not like you haven't been communicating with these people, and that's difficult, isn't it, Mike? When you don't communicate regularly, and then out of and to them it seems like you come out of the blue and you're dropping the hammer, and they're like, oh, I had no idea. If you're delivering a message and they have no idea, your communication skills suck. You need to work on that, right? Take personal responsibility for how you're communicating because it should be telegraphed to them on a regular basis. And again, I love that you keep going back to personal responsibility and the positive. How can they spin this to the positive?
Yeah, and look, I just want to say this real quick. It is important because I know a lot of folks will resonate with this, to give the feed forward in game. If you're one of those people, and I know a lot of people listening to this will definitely resonate with this, that allows whatever's going on to just marinate and stew and simmer and until you get to a point that you're angry or frustrated, it's not going to come out positive. It's not going to come out in a way that anybody is going to be receptive to it. So if you're now doing this in game, when you see it, say something. When you see that they're not doing it the way that they need to be doing, give them the feed forward in that moment so that they will know how to do it and what you want them to do, not what you don't want them to do or what not to do.
Yeah, that very powerful, Mike. And I'd like to share that what with the audience, what Mike's talking about is again the power of positive communication. And one of the things that I like to, and I learned this, I forget where I learned it from, but it doesn't matter, is start with a what question, not a why question, right? To your point earlier, you ask somebody a why question, they instantly start to back up, and that's it, fight or flight, right? Why did you, and instead of asking, hey, what went on? What happened? Completely different kind of frame of mind. And we're looking at what happened, not why did you do something. Very powerful. Mike, I really appreciate this. Is there anything you'd like to add or something you wanted that's on your heart that you'd like to share with the audience?
Yeah, and you know, Louis, what I would like to say is what I really feel like will be very beneficial to everybody that's listening to this, and that is, I really want you to examine how you start your day. So if you're a snooze button hitter, I want you to be aware that you're in a negative mindset when you do that. You're having a negative conversation with yourself. You're creating all of this negative energy around yourself, and you haven't even gotten out of the bed yet. So you've already started your day in a negative way. Those of y'all that are multiple snooze button hitters, oh my God, think about how much negativity you've created for yourself and you haven't even gotten out of your bed yet. So I like to suggest to people that they take their phone or their alarm clock and move it across the room. Because we're not talking about motivation anymore, Louis. We're talking about self-discipline. I say the more and more you build that self-discipline muscle, you'll be motivated to continue doing whatever it is that you need to do. But it's not about needing more motivation or willpower. It's about self-discipline. So if I now made a commitment to myself that when that alarm goes off, I'm going to get up, I'm already working that self-discipline muscle and making it stronger because I did what I said I was going to do. I'm accepting personal responsibility for that. So now that I'm up, what I would suggest to people, Louis, is don't go turn on CNN or Fox. You already know that's going to be negative. Don't go get your morning newspaper out the driveway and sit down with a cup of coffee and start reading that. Don't let that be the first thing that you ingest into your spirit. So like Louis does, and I know he does it because we talk about this, is the second thing that I want you to do once you get up is read something positive. I mean, there are millions of websites out there on the internet that have positive inspirational messages, or you can send us a message at Discover Leadership Training. We'll send you one of our books that has 365 positive messages in, but read something positive. Start your day by reading something positive. For those of y'all that are really spiritual people, if that's your Bible, whatever, just make a commitment to read something positive. And then once you have started your day like that, I want you to observe the difference that it makes for your entire day and everything that you got to deal with all day long.
Mike, I love that. So that leads me, I brought my book today,
Okay.
365 Powerful Messages. And I want people that are watching, you can see that this thing's dog-eared. I'm actually on my fourth time through it. So this is a year of positive messages. This is a book Mike wrote. And not only is it, and Mike, this just occurred to me literally in the moment, but I have my card from
Okay.
Discover Leadership. That's my bookmark in your book.
That's
And
all.
for those of you that can't see it, again, this is a God moment. The hair on the back of my neck stand up, but it says, "I am worthy." And then I read this: "I am worthy. I choose to believe in myself. I matter in everything that I do, and I'm committed to love and respect myself. I will create a better version of myself. I am worthy." And I read that when I read your page for the day. And so what he's talking about is very powerful, and it's as simple as getting a book. Now, Mike, before I want people to know how to be able to get in touch with you, but I'd like to publicly right now thank you, because this just came up to me in the moment. And it touches me. I'm sorry. It moves my heart, brother. I would not be doing this podcast had I not gone through Discover Leadership. I mean that. And that light just went off right now. You know, I went through those fear. Am I good enough? Who the hell am I to be leading a podcast? Who am I to talk about love? Who am I to talk about leadership? But and to your point, I got out of that. You know, I let those beliefs go and thought I'm going to go do this. And I just took those little steps, and bam, here we are. But I can tell you that the impetus of that came from the 4 days I spent with you for Discover Leadership. And so I'd love for you to tell people now. And now I want to be clear. Mike's got a program called Discover Leadership, and the only way that you can get in is to be nominated. He doesn't take every chucklehead off the street. And one of the reasons why he doesn't is because you have to commit. You have a conversation, even after you're nominated, you have a conversation with Mr. Mike Jones himself, because he wants to know how committed you are to making a change in your life, to live in the life of your dreams, to focus on your outcomes, to be the best version of you. So, and his success rate is very high because he's got a screening process that only takes the people that really want to change the game changers. So I'm going to tell everybody listening in the audience, if you'd like to get into Discover Leadership, reach out to me personally, and I will nominate you to Mike Jones personally. And Mike Jones and I have both a professional and personal relationship, but I will nominate you personally to get into Discover Leadership, because otherwise you can't get in. You can contact Mike for books, have him come to speak at your organization or an event, but he will not let you into Discover Leadership without a nomination. And trust me, I love him, and it's people that have gone through it, my team members, other people, friends that I've known. Mike Anderson, a mutual friend of ours, refers tons of people in the collision industry. But again, if you want that nomination, please reach out to me, and I'll be happy to make that happen. But Mike, how can people get a hold of you, and what are some of the other things that you offer that you can help them with?
Yeah, for sure, Louis. They can contact us through the website at discoverleadership.com. Send me a message there. I love just connecting with people and kind of talking through their stories. I love hearing people's stories. We will offer coaching to people that are graduates of our program and people that aren't. I mean, so if they need anything from us, we know that there's like 8 billion people on the planet. We're not going to touch every last one of them, but we want to touch as many of them as we possibly can. They can join my Facebook page. It's a public page. So and follow us there. We drop a Hump Day Wisdom, which is an article every Wednesday, and they can see it on that Facebook page, Mike Jones Discover Leadership Training. And yeah, we would just love to connect with them. So
Well, Mike, thank you very much. I'd highly recommend that you reach out to Mike. As you can hear and see easily, he's just a wealth of wisdom and knowledge. And I can tell you that Mike Jones is living what he's talking about, because we didn't preemphasize this with any specific questions. We let it be organic, and it went where it went. So these are the kind of people you want to seek out in your life that will help you change your life. And trust me when I tell you, Mike Jones is a man that does that every day. So Mike, I love you, brother. Thanks for taking the time, and what a true joy. And I'd like to invite you in the future. We'll do this again, because we just, you're like the iceberg, right? We just hit the tip of your iceberg, brother. Underneath the water, there's just a whole mass of stuff you still know.
absolutely, man. Thank you, Louis, for allowing me to do this. I'm honored, humbled by your friendship and your love. And I love you. I love you as well, my brother. Absolutely.
Thanks again for joining us and listening to this episode of Leadership and Love. I would like to challenge you to ask yourself, what's one thing that you heard today that you can implement immediately to improve your leadership and accelerate your growth? If you've gotten value out of this episode or learned something that you can implement today, we'd ask that you please share it with those that you care about. Our goal is to create more leaders who are leading with love.